All right, waiting for confirmation that the stream is starting. It looks like we've actually gone live. So the first real official InfoSec Brett live stream. I gotta remember not to sit there and look at the YouTube interface. It takes a while to sit there and update. So, you might be wondering what this crap is on my head. So I figured that due to recent events in the world, basically the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, that might sit there and try to make a themed live stream for this morning. Basically, I'm going to sit there, grab some guys, this is going to effectively be like showing how the sausage is made. So I'm going to be making some, or basically finding resources to kind of put together for a more, detailed set of videos. Basically trying to tackle, okay, crap's hitting the fan, what to do from the perspective of the home user, from the perspective of the business, probably to small, medium business, and effectively the enterprise, just to see as to how this shakes out. Although, depending as to feedback, everything else like that, I may leave it as just doing the home side, depending. I don't know. We'll see what the feedback looks like. So that's effectively the whole get up with this. The helmet, and then obviously the live uamap.com site that's over there on the left-hand side of the screen, basically showing the information in regards to the conflict. They were showing previously more red areas captured, although I think this is Saturday morning, 26. I think that they were talking, or the latest news was that they pretty much almost encircled the capital city, but okay, we did it for the gag, effectively. I don't need to wear that. I can put my there. That might make it a little bit easier to sit there and talk as well. Yeah, I'm noticing that the microphone's not spiking as bad if this is back in its normal position. Okay, so effectively, I think this effectively would cut across to all swaths. So the home, the SMB, and then the enterprise. So effectively, the 3-2-1 backup rule. Oh man, I really got that small. Okay, let's go bigger. How's that look? Could be better. Okay, let's make it bigger again. 36. 40. 48. Ooh, I like that one better. All right, this is from uschamber.com. I believe that they would talk about... Oh, there we go. Keep at least one backup file off-site. Save your backups in 2 different types of media, so solid-state hard drive, DVD, or tape, or maybe like Google Drive. Although, honestly, if you're going to do Google Drive, Dropbox, any of those online services, you might want to look at basically making your data an encrypted blob. I think there are a couple of add-ons that you can do that would interface directly with those and be able to dump the stuff back and forth. So that way, effectively, Google and any other organization that you would dump that stuff to would have just garbage. They can't see what you've got. Then 3, create one primary backup and 2 copies of your data, because if you just have a single instance of the data, it's not really a backup. And you would think that we wouldn't have to sit there and say that now, but unfortunately that just seems to be about the way that this stuff works, which is kind of sad. So take that, and we're going to add that as a subset. We can keep that small. Whoa. Okay, we need to definitely do some shrinkage on this, because this is just Let's say this is what, 48? Let's say 24. This is basically just for me to come back. Although I can't take credit for the 3-2-1 rule. I first heard it from Leo Laporte back when he still actually had a television series. Was it Tech TV before the merger into G4? And I think he got it from some digital photographer, which, I mean, would make sense. I mean, you do photography of a particular event. It's not like you can really restage the whole event to happen as it actually played out to be able to get those pictures again. So backup is basically something that would stretch all the way across. Home users, and this actually would apply again for just about everybody else. Outside of backup is and as stupid as it's going to sound, update all the things. So when this stuff with Ukraine basically started to kick off, I have a habit of once monthly going through, having all the systems scanned, regardless as to the amount of activity, checking backups, and and looking for updates, operating systems, applications, router firmware, all that good stuff. And while we're talking about router firmware, I just remembered something else that I had read. So effectively, what's being used, besides denial of service attacks, is compromised routers, firewalls, things of that nature. So effectively, the Sandworm group, which is equated to Russia, they had a VPN filter that previously had been used against routers, and I believe that Cyclops Blink was basically, they call out WatchGuard primarily. And then they believe that effectively, so if you got a WatchGuard device, I believe that WatchGuard has a actual remediation page already all stood up. It's not as simple as just overwriting or updating the firmware. You've basically got to clean the device and then re-upload. So effectively, if you're, well, any of them, home user, I mean, if you're a home user and you have a WatchGuard device, I tip my hat to you. Yeah, your main thing must be security, or you've got basically a remote work from home office, and security is, one of the top of the line things that are basically set up. Any of those big players. So WatchGuard, SonicWall, Fortinet, Cisco even. Let's see. Malwarebytes even got into it about the alert. Here we go. 4-step Cyclops Blink. And they've got tools that you can run as well to basically take a look to see if your WatchGuard device. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me as to whether or not if they decided to change tactics a little bit, if they were able to sit there and figure out vulnerabilities to basically pop this stuff. You might see your bigger players. It's not Linksys anymore. It's Belkin, I believe. At last time I checked, maybe things like ASUS because they've got a decent foothold into the home market. What's the other one? Is it Netgear or D-Link? They've got the Nighthawk routers. Really funky looking things. Not that I can say much. I mean, my router looks like some sort of weird metallic alien facehugger. I have one of those prosumer ones. Not quite just straight consumer, but not quite professional. Yeah, 4-step process, remediation tools, plans, everything basically all just stood out. So effectively, If you're a home user and you've got a WatchGuard device, it doesn't hurt to sit there and take a look at this stuff. Should probably go through and make sure that I've got this bookmark to come back to. And if effectively, if you're worried with this stuff, check the firmware version that would be in your router's admin panel and check with the vendor. I mean, usually it's support dot whatever the vendor is, so like a support.asus.com, and you basically find your list device, take a look at the downloads, and go from there. And make sure you got your AV, everything else like that put up to date. Again, this would basically stem across all, so home, small, medium business, enterprise. I mean, whitelisting obviously would be a great help, but that's usually past the SMB level. I mean, again, if you're a home user and you don't actually do anything with security and you've got some sort of whitelisting thing on your boxes, I'd love to know what you do. That's not quite normal. Although technically I'd rather be abnormal in regards to this stuff. But yeah, so operating system updates, router updates for the firmware, configuration settings. So I mean, if you still got the crappy default password on the admin panel, time to change that stuff. Given this stuff going on, and what was the other aspect that changed for this conflict? Disconnecting Russia from the SWIFT network. So in other words, the banking network, being able to transfer funds back and forth, stuff like that, effectively push them to the point where they may not really care. So Russian threat actors might go off the leash. Notice, might. So no real room to freak out, not trying to sit there and spread FUD, fear, uncertainty, doubt. But effectively, some of this stuff is considered table scrapes, the bare minimum, basically, and not or for 2022. I mean, if it's important to you, you should have a backup. I mean, even if you can't adhere to the 3-2-1 rule, some sort of backup, not just a single copy. Maybe it's you got a terabyte SSD in a dock. You dump all the stuff that's grossly important, you take it out of the dock, and you put it into something like this. This is this one is Mission Darkness off of Amazon to basically hold drives or cell phones, or in this particular case, passport, because of the NFC capabilities that are the chip that they put in this, basically just to seal the stuff out. You can get the smaller ones for less than $100, like the ones designed for phone or a hard drive. Basically stuff that in there and then dump it into a safe. So, why? Why something like this? Well, in the event that everything goes completely to crap, if you live in the U.S., effectively, I think last time I looked, nuclear detonation 300 miles above central U.S. would knock out over 99% of the electronics in the U.S. I think there'd only be like some of the most furthest tips in the Northeast. I think it was also the Northwest, and maybe like the very, very tip of Florida, depending on the simulations that were run. So effectively, this would block out the electromagnetic radiation. I mean, you're still screwed. You're not going to have power. Anything with a circuit effectively would be fried, everything else like that. But while everything basically gets back to normal, effectively your data would be safe here. Of course, now you also have the aspect of, okay, if you actually dumped it to spinning platter drives, shock or anything else like that would be kind of a big thing, and you'd obviously want to make sure that you had to drive it an anti-static wrap. No, I'm not, getting, this is not a sponsorship for Mission Darkness or anything else like that. But effectively, I don't know if it shows, but it's basically just inline, very fine mesh. I think it's copper. I could be wrong though, but it's just one of those more important aspects. Uh, just if you really want to go, as nutso as possible. I take certain things to the paranoid extreme. So if you find that, no, I don't really want to spend, whatever it is, 50, 70, 80 bucks on, a RFID shielded bag, everything else like that, then okay, you do what you do. So update all the things, and that means all the things. The other aspect that came up was, and this was just released, I think, this morning or a couple of hours ago, the new version of or I guess the latest version of whatever wiper is being used um, against Ukrainian targets. So basically, once they pop the network, they drop this little sucker in, and it looks a lot like the NotPetya stuff. Basically, just goes through, and I don't know if they actually take it to the aspect of presenting a ransomware screen. I know that Sentinel-1 had done a report, and ESET Research on Twitter had also done a report. Here's the ESET page. No apparent pictures. Wait, they mentioned NotPetya. Okay, so what it was before, Whispergate was the one that mimicked NotPetya. So basically looked like ransomware, but effectively was just a disguised system wiper. And I probably have to dig in a little bit more in regards to this, but we'll leave this up. Actually, let's just go back because we can open up a couple of these other ones. Oh. So not only do they have the labs portion, but it looks like they've actually... Oh God, now I'm wondering as to whether or not can I actually show this? But I'm just wondering more for the actual value in regards to, like, do they actually show it run? Okay, so yeah, you don't get the ransom screen, you just basically get the recovery screen for Windows, at least from the sample that they're looking at. And of course, I'm sure they'll show that Sentinel-1 will stop this. Which, I mean, good. We need stuff that does. And then what was this morning? AV Comparatives had done again, this will basically go across both consumer and enterprise. Tested various things in the real world protection framework with the Hermetic wiper. All the tested products as of yesterday were able to protect the system effectively against multiple variants of the Hermetic wiper malware. So I guess effectively. So on the enterprise side, Cronus, Avast, Bitdefender, Cisco, CrowdStrike, Cybereason, Elastic, ESET, Fortinet, GData, K7, Kaspersky, Malwarebytes, Microsoft, Sophos, Trillex, which is the renamed McAfee, although I think it stays McAfee for the home, Viper, VMware, and WatchGuard, which is kind of interesting considering the fact that the WatchGuards were the firewall router appliances that basically the Russian hackers basically got a backdoor for. Whatever. Let's see. So what else do we have? Consumer. So Avast, AVG, Avera, Bitdefender, ESET, GData, K7, Kaspersky, Malwarebytes, McAfee, there it is. Microsoft, Norton LifeLock, Panda, Total Defense, Total AV, Trend Micro, and Viper. It kind of makes me wonder, though, as to what else might have been possibly looked at. So I guess effectively the AV vendors got you covered if you're worried about the wiper spreading into your network or onto your machines, whatever the case would be. So I guess effectively as of late yesterday, the 25th of February, as long as you got the latest version and you've got it updated, you should have protection against this. Of course, now that doesn't mean that, they can't go back, change a few things, and then basically just create havoc. I have to imagine that since they announced this, they might go back to the drawing board to see what they can do to get it past more targets. But that might be more of a move for desperation right now. So I'll make sure to leave that in there. And then effectively... So I guess at least if you're worried more so in regards to this conflict, see about something out of any of these vendors. Although the whole Kaspersky thing being in Russia, you take your, you got to put your faith in something. If you're using Microsoft Defender, you're putting your faith in Microsoft. I mean, I see more false positives than anything else with that, but I'd rather have false positives than what is it? True negative? But we're actually having something slip through. So anything off of the list that would be there. I know that there's been a large call. Well, there was a large call last time. Kaspersky was basically in the news. What was it? The whole aspect with NSA's tailored access operations toolkit was basically pulled out because some analyst took a bunch of tools home and they had Kaspersky on their box. Kaspersky just wigged out and grabbed the stuff, obviously detecting that, okay, something hinky is here. And I think that was the best description that we ended up having. Is either that or shadow brokers had managed to actually compromise a staging server and pull the tools off. Of course, in the general public, will probably never actually know what happened, but I guess take your pick. I mean, Russia's proven to be the aggressor, so that's kind of the question as it is right now. Do you really want to put your faith in a Russian AV? I mean, they may sit there and say that they're separate, that they don't have much, but I mean, they have no problem going through and getting the jackboot police to sit there and stomp on the protesters that don't really want the war with Ukraine. I'm not going to put it past it for their intelligence services to go and, hold a bunch of people at gunpoint and say, okay, yeah, you need to not bother to detect this updated version of the Hermetic Wiper. But then I would expect that the same for anything. I mean, me being based in the U.S., I could definitely see, who's supposed to be, CIA? Give a tip to the FBI, have them basically just, they don't end up liking something. If I was an AV producer, national security, you need to whitelist this stuff, not bother to look at it. I mean, you're kind of hosed effectively. I mean, I can sympathize with what they've got to deal with. I mean, you've got a product that, is supposed to be there to protect anyone who has that product. But you live in a country that Intel services could have a real big bone to pick with you in regards to detecting their malware. It's kind of like the meme. I wonder if I could find it quick. Of course, it's going to be on Reddit. The whole aspect of layered security. Yeah, okay, yeah, that's exactly it. Although I think I've seen it more where it's actually layered in. But effectively, the joke is that you have to have a firewall vendor from, basically all the different vendors to basically protect against other backdoors and stuff that might be planted in. So basically, as this points out, the first one in series from the internet is a Huawei firewall to protect against US backdoors, then a Juniper firewall to protect against Chinese backdoors, and then a Cisco firewall to protect against Israeli backdoors, and then a Checkpoint firewall to protect against Russian backdoors. And then I think the other ones that I've seen basically add a few more, and then it ends before it hits the trusted LAN segment with a pfSense box, basically just for luck. I mean, that might be something else to consider too. I mean, you may have your home router. This is more for, well, I guess it could effectively apply to all of them. If you're an SMB and you're basically operating out of a home office, it may not hurt to sit there and have an additional firewall appliance put in front of your home office segment. I mean, we've gotten to the point that, so if you've got a Belkin underneath the Linksys brand name is, the thing that everything routes into, maybe you go out and buy something else, buy an Asus or maybe a Nighthawk and basically, pop that in front of your actual network segment. I mean, it'll take a little bit of extra configuration, but now you got something from a different vendor that effectively, so if somebody's got something that would pop a Linksys by Belkin box, you're effectively protected past that point with your D-Link, Asus, whatever, just a different brand. Or you could actually go and invest in a Netgate pfSense box or whatever the case would be that you're looking to do. But this is effectively the gist of it. Considering the fact that, we rely on so many different vendors from so many different countries. It's not all just the US, it's not all just Israel. The other aspect would be, I think this would probably move out of the realm of the home user. But for small, medium business up to the enterprise, do you know where your data is? Do you know who your vendors interface with? Mostly just because of the fact of, I mean, if you've got, what is it, Medoc, which I think was responsible for spreading NotPetya, the Ukrainian tax software that if you do any business in Ukraine, that somebody's got to have it somewhere. I mean, if Russia rolls up and takes over the offices and manages to hold the engineers at gunpoint, something else like that, okay, now you've got a backdoor into every machine that's got that stuff. I mean, they may not want to do that. They may decide to eat a Russian bullet before it reaches that point. But the kind of question that you need to ask yourself is, do you want to take that risk? I mean, I don't know if there's Ukrainian data centers. I have to imagine that there are. Do you have any connections back to there? Do you have any boxes running in any sort of Ukrainian data center? Do any of your vendors basically, are they Ukrainian? And I mean, moving past the conflict to the, bigger picture worldwide, any country that's invaded. I mean, do you really want to sit there and keep those VPN connections up to them or anything else? I mean, as this crap's been going on, I know that my VPN provider of choice, I think Ukraine's still on the list, but I'd be damned if I'm sitting there routing anything through there now until this stuff calms down. Netherlands it is. If I'm looking for something in Europe. Um, but you just got to kind of roll the dice with that aspect. I mean, if Ukraine, I believe that this week that they did the national emergency or declaration of a national emergency. I know that they're grabbing 16 to 65-year-olds, telling them they can't flee the country, that, okay, here's a rifle, get up there and fight, while allowing women and children out of the country, or at least that's what the reports say. You just need to be mindful of where your stuff sits and who's got connections back to you, or you have connections out to them. Because honestly, if I was, part of a security team that was doing business in the Ukraine and that MEDOC software, everything else like that for the tax services, I mean, that machine would be basically shunted off into its own little section. We're just going to silo that sucker, and we're going to make sure that it is only there for tax-related purposes. We don't want any chance of it basically, some sort of bad update coming down, being pushed, that's actually just been backdoored 5 ways from Sunday, and now we've got Russian hackers in the network. The same thing with, understanding, do I have a vendor that works in the Ukraine? Have we established like a permanent or as needed basis VPN for them to come into our network and do something? No vendors come to mind, but that doesn't mean that there isn't something there that they end up doing. That would be the aspect from there, to basically just cut that stuff off. Just cut it. Disable it. Just until this stuff's over with. And then even then, you might want to sit there and have conversations with them, assuming that it stays the country of Ukraine, if the stuff comes back, that, okay, what steps have you guys taken to remediate any sort of potential additional compromise that might have happened? I mean, say Russia gets driven out, but, our vendor, our partner, whatever the case was in Russian occupied territory. I'm not really going to trust them until all their equipment's been effectively wiped, reloaded, and kind of rebuilt. I mean, if they didn't have, armed guards all in that building, basically keeping the Russians out, sorry, I can't trust you. But this is a good number of additional links that I've got up here. So this might be enough to kind of go through and then actually make something a little bit more better documented and thought out, and actually make a video as opposed to the live stream. Plus, I was really only shooting to at least have the first one in at 30 minutes, something topical, and then kind of go from there. So, I don't know. I guess if anybody even bothers to watch this, comments, questions, feedback, it's always the big thing. I mean, I do get, some constructive feedback from time to time for some of the stuff that I do, which is always good. They've got ideas in terms of how to make things better, which I'm always receptive to. So I can at least appreciate that. But, so, I guess if anybody else has any other ideas to basically help feed into the whole aspect of, instead of the live stream portion, for actually more detailed and thought through videos in regards to situations like this. I don't know. I guess if anybody actually goes through and watches it, comment, like, or dislike. I mean, take your pick. But okay, I'm going to cut this off, and start working on a little bit more polished videos in regards to this stuff. Although the big question is going to be as to whether or not, if I Nope, doesn't integrate well with the headset. I guess maybe I just need to get a stand and a microphone. Go that route. But it's its own little gag, and I do feel a little bit bad for sitting there making some sort of partial light in response to what's going on. But I mean, at least as this stuff sits here, this doesn't directly affect us yet, although actually I might have just proven myself wrong. I remember that we were sitting about 350 gallon of gas here in central Illinois. And I think as we were going out to the bar last night, it damn near $4 now. So I guess that might be the other aspect too. You might be trying to work out, especially with the inflation, that us in the U.S. Now outside the U.S., everything else like that. Sorry, I'm going to make this U.S. centric for a second. Nope. Reminder, I got to purchase some triple mash. Anyways, so making it U.S. centric at this particular point. All the IT related stuff, good. So your 3-2-1 backup rule being followed. You got all your stuff updated, AV, everything else like that. Maybe you've got a business side to your home network, your home business, something else like that. Try a different router in front. Make sure all your stuff's up to date. And like anything else, yeah, something that kind of entirely whiffed on. MFA all the things, not the tings, the things. For good reason. I mean, honestly, if you're being targeted by a nation state, you're probably in for hurting, no matter what you end up doing. But you don't have to make it easier for them. You don't have to roll over, even if it means basically unplugging your network and just running isolated. If that's what it takes to keep the business going and trying to figure out some sort of other way to go through and get business done, I mean, cripe, if we can have end users go through and employ shadow IT to get their jobs done because, the rigors of, the corporate security is too much there. I mean, business will find a way. You want to do it bad enough, you'll find a way. But outside the IT related stuff, looking at all this stuff with the gas going up, everything else like that, and to kind of pivot away from IT security, might be time to sit there and see about either hoarding some money, getting that stuff put up, if you haven't already, some sort of stable food just in case, because everything's going to get more expensive with this crap going on. Especially with policies that are in place to basically stopped us from being energy independent. And that'll be about as far into that subject as I go. But effectively, it's basically time to start looking out for you and yours, just to make sure, if anything, that this is going to sit there and prove that, if this stuff keeps going, this could get a lot worse. So it may not just be, additional 50 cents for a gallon of gas. I think they were also saying that somewhere in California it could go up to $6 for a gallon of gas. So, battery backups, generators for the house, stable fuel for whatever you can sit there and hold. Don't know if really need to go to the aspect of precious metal. But me, I prefer to invest more in firearms. If I get range time, it's a great stress reliever. But if you don't like guns, I don't know. Now I'm just rambling. But, all right, so I got to go sit there and make this purchase. So here's basically just a stream of consciousness for almost 40 minutes in regards to the recent stuff that's gone on, and kind of an inside look as to what I go through, just as general points if I'm making an off-topic video that is not Let's Defend or anything else like that. Hopefully this is just great review, given the timeliness of the subject matter. Maybe this is the first time you're hearing about any of this stuff. If it is, links will be, let's see, down in the description. for the video or live stream once I get this stuff going. At least I think I can go back and add stuff like that. I don't know. This is the first real one that I've done. That last one was basically just a quick test that I think went unlisted. But keep your head down, stay safe, everybody.